So I'm not sure if you're someone who goes to the opera incredibly often, but either way, I think you can definitely picture how a lot of operas at least look or work, right? A lot of times there's forbidden romance, there's a big heartbreak, and most often most operas do restrict that romance or that great heartbreak to the relationship between a man and a woman, but a new production from Rufus Wainwright is part of the change in that. His new opera, Hadrian, just had its world premiere last month with the Canadian Opera Company in Toronto. Rufus Wainwright is in town for the latest stop on his All These Poses tour, apparently able to juggle a massive opera production, an anniversary tour, celebrating first year no records, and find time to work on new music and somehow come by a public radio studio too.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm happy you made it. Hadrian, did I get that right?
Well, Hadrian.
Hadrian,
yeah. Hadrian, and I say Antinous. But there's, none of us were around then, so you can say whatever you want.
I can get away with anything I want to.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a second. Just listen to, this is a really beautiful moment from the opera. So that's just a little tiny glimpse of the new opera Hadrian.
Yes.
Hadrian. This really tender moment between Hadrian, the Roman emperor, and his Greek lover, Antonius or...
Antinous. Yeah.
Played by Isaiah Bell. Their relationship is really at the core of this whole story. So tell me about bringing this relationship to life in an opera.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you began your monologue, you were wondering if you may or may not go to the opera a lot, and I thought you were talking to me, but and I was about to interject, but no. Obviously, I spend a lot of time going to the opera. I mean, it's something that really grabbed my imagination at an early age when I was about 13, and it hasn't, ceased to amaze me as an art form. So I go a lot. Hadrian is my second opera. For years I always kind of knew that I wanted to write one, but I was really more dedicated to my day job and night job, which is being a songwriter. But after a while, I realized that I wanted to give back to that form some of the depth that it gave to my life. So I embarked on that journey, and this is my my second round here.
Your second round, but wasn't Hadrian the first thing you wanted to work on?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'd always thought that the story of Hadrian and Antinous would be a great subject for an opera.
Why?
It just has all of the trappings of a great grand opera. I mean, I love modern opera a lot, as well as Baroque opera for that matter. But really, my heart resides in the romantic repertoire, and especially within grand opera, and and be it and what that always entails usually is sort of this juxtaposition between the grand political tectonic shifts of let's say an empire, and the very intimate personal dealings of the main characters, which are very human. So it's that sort of those two worlds colliding.
So how long are we talking between you originally wanting to do this and finally getting staged?
Yeah. Well, I read the book almost 20 years ago, but there's a book called by Margaret Yourcenar called Memoirs of Hadrian, which the opera isn't technically based on, though there are elements of it. And so that's when I came into contact first with the story, and but then I would say about 10 years ago, after I finished Prima Donna, that's when I really started to rev up, and it's been a good solid 5 years of earnest labor.
So take me to that moment. Like, can you remember the moment where you saw this very cerebral work you've been doing, very emotional work you've been doing.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of hard work, and I want to get to that in a second. But
yeah.
do you remember the moment where you saw it actually on stage in front of you? Was that a moment for you?
Well, I oftentimes remind myself before embarking on a process, what matters and what is the most rewarding sort of period. And I remember so vividly in the recent past, getting ready for the rehearsals, at the cigar factory down where the COC or some, it's not a cigar factory, it's some sort of whatever that
It's
space.
kind of an abandoned old warehouse.
Yeah, that warehouse. Yeah,
Not a romantic space necessarily.
but getting ready for it's a very beautiful space. But getting ready for that process, and I remember thinking and even telling people like those are the magical moments, really, in creating an opera. Is that whole, raising of the roof, and so and now in retrospect, it remains the same. I mean, just seeing. I mean, yes, I love seeing it in the hall, and certain of the performances were just utterly, transformative. But really, that whole process of just seeing the characters being given birth is what it's all about as a composer. So that's the process I enjoy the most.
I'm sure you're getting a lot of the questions of, what's the difference in writing an opera and writing? And I'm less interested in that. But I am aware that as a songwriter, you often write from your own perspective, and oftentimes you write from another person's perspective. You write another person's story. Yeah. I find it fascinating that you can also move into writing several characters' story at once. How does that affect your process?
I actually, it's funny. It's not with Hadrian so much as with Prima Donna, my first opera, that I composed, where I realized that it is a sort of mystical exchange that occurs in the sense that I first came in contact with the story of Hadrian and knew that it would be a great opera on the surface, but I knew instinctively that I wasn't ready to conquer the Roman Empire on my first round. So I kind of waited for another subject to come to me, and then one day Prima Donna did the idea, and it was a very kind of a mystical moment where I just suddenly these characters, a little light went off, and these characters I realized had a soul and had to be brought to life, and I think that's the same thing that happened with Hadrian as well. It's definitely this kind of it's funny because I think there is a lack of women composers, certainly in grand opera. Mm-hmm. That is a big thing. I would say that one of the reasons there's so many male ones, at least in the classic repertoire, is that I think composing an opera is the closest one can get to like conceiving a child if you're a man in the 19th century. Just all like building the bones of those people, and it really is. It's you're really pregnant with these folks if you're into it, which I obviously am.
It seems like a great feat in organization too, just trying to keep everything straight.
Yeah. Well, you definitely need representation, and then and it's interesting because then once the singers get involved, then they start to become the parents of these characters, and they get very protective and discussions ensue.
I bet. And now you know what it's like to have artists at you as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, as I said, that's also another great thing about working in the opera is that there's so many different opinions that you have to contend with.
So I'm trying not to laugh at that. Yes, of course, one of the great things about working in any creative idiom is all the opinions. Yeah. That's my favorite thing about working at the CBC. Rufus, I couldn't help but notice that I saw a bit of a thread family-wise in Hadrian, and I might be making it up, and I'm aware that people like me imbue more meaning on things than sometimes there. But I couldn't help but notice that your mom's last song I heard her do was Proserpina, which is also based on a Roman story, a Roman goddess.
It's Persephone,
which is Greek. She's kind of the Roman version of Persephone.
Roman version of Persephone.
Something going on with your family, just loving Roman?
Well, I mean, there's definitely Plotina, the mother, quote unquote, in the opera, though she wasn't technically Hadrian's mother. She adopted him, but was responsible for his rise to power and very much, remained a potent force in his life even after she died, because he made her into a goddess and so forth. But anyways, she I experienced a bit of that with my mom, and there's definitely always been a dynastic quality to my upbringing, with all these musical families kind of aligning, and so we've always related to the ancients in one way or another. And I would say, I don't know. I mean, I also find as I get older, and experience things like death and birth and also tragic political situations, you have to go back to those ancient stories and and look at those patterns that we're still dealing with today. I mean, so much in Hadrian is potent at this very time.
How so? What do you mean?
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. Whether it's the creation of Palestine, which happened under Hadrian's rule, and the massacre of Jews, and then also the remaining homophobia that was, though they certainly didn't call it homophobia back then, but they had, whatever, there were strict rules with homosexual relationships that are kind of very similar to today in a lot of ways. I mean, in the sense that you can kind of have dalliances maybe, but once it's a real relationship, and you're a person in power, it's a big problem. Mm-hmm. So there's that, and then just the workings of an empire and so forth.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Rufus Wainwright. We've been talking a little bit about his new opera, Hadrian, which airs on CBC Music, like CBC Radio 2 tomorrow.
Yes.
Do check it out. I remember the way I got turned back onto opera before I went to music school was because they were doing the theater. Remember them? They just do the live from the Met in movie theaters.
Yes.
And out in St. John's, that was such a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of would have Air Supply would come every now and then, and we'd be able to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of two minds with the broadcast, or the screenings of operas from the Met. I mean, I think on one hand it's an amazing thing, mm-hmm. and it's done wonders for at least the repertoire and people coming into contact with that form. It does kind of eradicate some people actually going to the opera.
Yeah, and I know what you mean.
Right. And I think actually experiencing it live is such a unique kind of experience, because it's so, I don't know, it's really unamplified. There's no close-ups. You really have to rely on the power of the actual performers and the musicians to get a perspective of how things are.
So if you listen to this on the radio tomorrow, also go.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to do both. I mean, I became a huge opera fan when I was 13, and I started, of course, with recordings. But then when I first went, I was shocked at how quiet it was. I mean, because it's not, there are no microphones, but then, volume and depth and power became it takes on another dimension, which isn't about mass necessarily. It's about depth. So it was so it's worth going to the opera too.
You're also here celebrating 20 years since your debut album.
Yes.
We dug up an old CBC interview.
Oh boy.
This is from 2 years before you released that album. So this was when you signed your record deal. Take a listen to this.
Oh, God.
It's just going to be all of my original songs, and I can, and it's, I'm going to basically have, I don't have carte blanche or anything silly like that, but I'm going to go into the studio and experiment. And it might be totally different. I might sound, like Cyndi Lauper or something. I don't know. I might just totally change. But it's going to be an adventure for sure in the studio.
That adventure sounds like it will help you to grow as a person.
Oh, well, yeah, I hope so. Or else it'll just make me paranoid.
That's an interview with CBC's Suhana Marshall from 1996,
Good
Rufus.
Lord.
How do you feel hearing that?
Well, I'm always entertained by previous incarnations of myself over the years. I think,
I find that very funny. Sorry.
and amazed, at just the sort of brute ambition that and confidence that I exuded, and I'm thankful to that little, tyke. But I could see also how, I must have been tremendously annoying.
No,
in a way.
It's nice to, but don't they call that the naivety of youth, where all great art springs from?
Yeah, I remember being very intent on not, exhibiting any kind of false modesty. That was my main sort of ethos at that point, not to just to be really honest about how I really felt. And for some people they thought it was amusing and even charming, and other people found it rather abrasive and probably wish that I'd been more palatable.
Oh, come on, we got enough palatable in our lives, I think. So 20 years since you released that debut record.
Yes.
I just got it on vinyl a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Because, and I think I might have told you the story before, but I may not have. I don't think I actually have. Is that it was the first CD I ever bought with my own money.
Oh wow.
The first.
That's amazing.
I was home. I had tonsillitis. I was at my grandmother's house.
Oh, that's
I was
cute.
watching Much More Music, which was the other Much Music,
yeah.
and the April Fool's video came on. Do we have a little bit of April Fool's? Can we just play a little bit of it?
And you will believe in love and all that it's supposed to be, but just until the fish start to smell and you're struck down by a hammer.
So yeah, that's Rufus Wainwright with April Fool's, and I saw that video, and I called. I think all I owned at that point were like Guns N' Roses records, Limp Bizkit, and Korn records.
Yeah.
And I called Fred's Records in downtown St. John's, and I said, "Do you have an album by a guy named Rufus Wainwright?" And they said, "Yeah." And I went down, and I think I had just gotten my confirmation. Confirmation,
Yeah.
like your Catholic confirmation.
Yeah.
And I went down with the $20 I had gotten from that.
Oh, wow.
And I bought the first Rufus Wainwright album.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, the first record that I ever bought was Men Without Hats,
Oh,
which several years earlier. So
I often say that when people ask me my first record, which I get asked a lot in interviews, they say, "What's your first record you ever bought?" And I say Rufus Wainwright, and they say, "Oh, cool." And I go, It never should have been that cool. I wasn't a cool kid, It was. I think after you, it was back to Limp Bizkit or something like that.
Well,
But
at least that's all that was limp. Sorry, I had to say that.
that's all right. I got to lose my job somehow. But you're looking back at these old songs now, and you're on tour right now. You're playing music from Poses, the
Yes.
record off that after
And the
that
first
one,
record, yeah,
and the
both.
first record as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you can hear that sort of opposite of false modesty. What is it like when you sit down now to play these songs? Is it all? Do you experience it all like a younger version of yourself?
I occasionally. When I first did the show again in Los Angeles, that was the first night of this tour, and my husband was there and a lot of friends and stuff. It was incredibly emotional to go through them all, and especially when I got to One Man Guy, which is by my dad, and just the scope of things, and then it kind of settled down a bit, for a few days, but then the other night we were in Chicago and we had this amazing crowd. It really depends on the public. Interestingly enough,
What do you mean?
I've done about eight shows now, and they've all been really good. I have an amazing band with me, and I've been in good form. So it's all, they've all been great. But really, it's that extra little kind of added something that certain crowds bring that will unlock emotions and give you more of give you a deeper experience. And for some reason, it's interesting because I've always been rather ambivalent about Chicago. I mean, I like it's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
I've never felt that connected to it. But for some reason, this last time we arrived and it was packed and people were just so excited to see me and it meant so much. And maybe it was just that night, a certain night, and it was an incredible evening, artistically. So I'm becoming more and more surprised at how much it's just like the physicality of where you are and who's in the audience that dictates how you're going to feel.
Bob Dylan said one time that he says when he listens back to "It's All Right, Mom, Only Bleeding," that it feels like a different person wrote it.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs are about drug abuse.
Right.
These songs are not about, but they feature moments of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. Does it feel like a different person entirely when you sing them?
No, I mean, I still would love to abuse drugs and alcohol. That isn't going away. But I, I'm of the belief that there are several that people are comprised of many different beings, and that they kind of develop as you get older, like a tree. You have many branches. So I still. And then you just become more and more kind of schizophrenic and confused as you get older, until you don't know who you are. So yeah. I mean, I think it's another person, but that other person is alive and kicking at times. And especially having a child myself.
Yeah.
Now I see, I can see my teenage Rufus kind of pop out and be like, I want more. I want that chocolate, And then my, father Rufus come out and be like, no, Rufus,
can't have that.
You can't. You have to give it to Viva.
I'm happy you mentioned One Man Guy. Can we play a little bit of that?
'Cause I'm a one-man guy in the morning, same in the afternoon. One-man guy when the sun goes down, I whistle me a one-man tune.
So that's Rufus Wainwright. We're accompanied by his sister Martha Wainwright and Teddy Thompson singing One Man Guy, a song I play around the house all the time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah, no, it's a masterpiece.
I had the chance to ask your dad about that cover last time. He was on the show a couple of months ago, and this is what he said.
Oh, God.
Well, I think it's a wonderful version of the song. I was happy and excited that he decided to do it, and then I was pretty knocked out by what they came up with. And he made it. They made it their own, Teddy and Martha and Rufus. And when somebody covers your song, that's a big thing, and it doesn't happen to me a lot, actually. I mean, I've had a few covers, and some of them I haven't liked very much. But I love that version of One Man Guy.
Not so bad, hey?
Not so bad. No, very good. Very good.
I could tell you were a little concerned.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm still, my father and I have come to a very good place now, but it has taken dedication and patience and understanding and acceptance and all of that stuff. Yeah. But we still have. I think in the end we've both realized how much power we have over each other, and that at any moment, that can either be used for good or for other reasons, So it's but we're doing well right now.
The reason he brought that up is because I, again, overthinking everything, said, when you heard that, did you hear it as your son covering your song? Did you hear your son singing about his own self and how he's just like you, or did you hear your son sing about you? Mm-hmm. And that's when he said, well, I don't know about that, but I really love the cover. What do you think about?
I mean, I'm singing about him.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't really relate to the song in the sense that I am not really that type of person that he professes to be, and that he struggles with, really. Like I've always needed other people in my life. I've always, and I think he's needed people too, but I never really went for that loner thing. But what's interesting though is that other people they always read it as me singing about like my homosexuality.
Oh, I'm a one-man
yeah,
guy. As
yeah,
in,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
So that's like a third kind of interpretation.
It's about your monogamy.
Yeah. So it's sort of. So it's it's just it's multifaceted, shall we say, the whole situation.
That's a beautiful version of that song.
Thank you.
You mentioned branches. You mentioned that.
Yes.
Well, we contain multitudes, I believe, is the line. But we are comprised of humans. We are comprised of branches that go out in different places that we grow from. I think when I first heard that first Rufus Wainwright record, I wasn't necessarily expecting you to go into opera. Do you feel at this point like you still have something to prove? Are those branches still going anywhere unexpected?
Yeah, I mean, opera very much informed my songwriting, but it was this sort of secret ingredient that I didn't. I talked about it and everything, but I made sure that it wasn't, overbearing, for the mainstream audience. So, but it was always, there was a lot of little tricks in opera that I've leaned on over the years. At a certain point, obviously I wanted to really get into the ring, and I'm well into it now. I would like to write 3 operas.
Oh yeah, so one more.
One more. I don't know when. Not for a while. I'd like to write a comedy, and that's all I know. And then but then in the midst of that, I've definitely been edging more towards the theater in general with music, whether it's musicals or ballets and stuff. So, and partially it's because I adore that universe, but it's also because, I'd like to spend less time touring and more time at home.
That's harder and harder these days too. More and more artists have to spend more and more time on the road.
No, I know. So it's a positive process. I will say that, it's also incredibly treacherous. Dealing with the classical world, I don't ever feel that I'll be totally accepted.
Do they see you as like a pop guy in their world?
Well, my main thing with opera is that, there was a time when there were speaking of branches, there were many branches. You could go see an Offenbach opera, or you could go see a Wagner opera, and there was really no comparison, but they were both at the same time. I feel like opera, because it's shrunk the whole world, it's become incredibly monolithic.
Right.
And there's this sort of establishment that believes, that opera should sound a certain way and follow in a certain tradition. Whereas I believe there should be different, avenues available for the public, which is ironic because that is what sells. It's still all those variety of operas that people go by, that buy tickets for. One night they might be in the mood for a Mozart light comedy thing, or the other night it's Verdi high drama,
or a big 9-hour Wagner opera.
Yeah,
like that,
so I would like to bring some of the variety back, and some of the musicality, and some of the romanticism. And certain people in the establishment are very nervous about that because they can't quantify it.
Right.
They can't quantify it. So, and then other people are just, very, very passionate about my beliefs, and I have my little coterie. So but that's also well within the history of operatic composers. There's always been a battle between the opera
and a
world
sort of
and
disruptor
the writer.
coming in.
Yeah. So it's all in a great tradition.
Are you still going to write 3-minute songs sometimes?
Oh yeah, no, I write all the time.
I hope so.
I'm not going to do it here tonight, but I will tantalize the audience. That at some point I did write a song about Toronto.
You don't want to play it right now?
I'm not going to play it right now. I haven't recorded it yet.
Okay.
But I just want to put that out there, just so it's, because I am going to record it fairly soon, and it's pretty funny.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah.
All right, good.
It's good. It's good. It's a good song. It's positive. But I also poke a bit of fun at this town because I have spent so much time here, and it's been so great to me, both to my husband and I over the years. They've really supported us in so many ways.
It was always very exciting getting Rufus Wainwright spottings in Toronto. You would always hear, I saw him. Yeah. I saw him walking down the street on Yonge Street the other day.
Yeah. No, it's been a great love affair, actually. But
well, I'm glad you came, and you're going to play a song off Poses now, right?
Yes. I'm going to sing a song. This is sort of the end of the evening. It's the last song of the album Posies.
And I almost never do this. I've broken a bunch of my own rules today. Is this song about being okay with dying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, I took acid and went to a cemetery and wrote this song many years ago.
Rufus, thanks for coming in.